Microphone on? I have a really bad habit of doing that. I've preached a lesson where I thought I was mic'd and I walked away from the microphone and they didn't hear anything. That was a fun time. So thank you guys. Well, good evening once again. Thank you all for coming out this evening. Many of you know I am not our regular speaker. The congregation allows men of the congregation to come forward and speak, which is appreciated. And so this evening, I will be speaking about the devil. Excuse me while I pull up my notes, because my computer decided it needed to reset. This evening I will be talking about the devil and knowing your enemy. I appreciate Jeremy for reading Matthew, which will be one of my key texts. I will be referring to each one of the temptations of Jesus, as in the temptation was Satan tempts him with bread, and then tempts him with the pinnacle of the temple, and then tempting him with the world. And again, if you could just excuse me, because for some reason my notes do not want to come up. There we go. So, thank you, Jeremy, for reading that. I will be also reading Job. That will be our other text this evening in Job chapter 1. So if you'd like to take a Bible and follow along with me, I will be reading in Job chapter 1, starting in verse 1, and we'll be reading about Job and the devil tempting him. There was a man from the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and shunned evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also his possessions, 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, a very large household. So this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. And his sons would go and feast in their homes, each on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink. So it was in the days of fasting that had run the course that Job would send and sanctify them, and would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of all of them. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did regularly. Starting in verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him. He is blameless, an upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil. So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands and his possessions, and have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So today I want to talk about knowing your enemy, or knowing the devil. And you might think that these 2 verses might be weird to put together. I certainly thought that when doing this lesson, Job and Matthew. But these are 2 incidences where the devil is physically present. And if you look, that's a rarity in the Bible. Not to say that these are the only 2 places. Surely there are others. But in these 2 examples, the devil is physically present. And that's what I want to focus on between these 2. So knowing your enemy. First, the devil is present, but he is not all present. We see the example in Job, where in verse 6, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves, and the Lord said to Satan, and Satan also came up from among them. Verse 7, the Lord said, "From where have you come, Satan?" And he said, "Roaming to and fro on the earth, walking back and forth on it." And we see the devil's also present in the temptations of Jesus. That seems fairly obvious, but it's important that he was present there. So, how did the devil know Job? Well, he was present there. He was walking to and fro on the earth. He was aware of who Job was. Well, how did the devil know to tempt Jesus with bread for his first temptation? I would argue that the devil knew Jesus was hungry. How did he know that? He was present there. So the devil may be present, but not all present. In a very, very familiar passage we see in Peter, it says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour." So is the devil present in your life? Is he a friend to you? We often think of the devil as someone being, quote unquote, in hell, or ruling the underworld. But the Bible does not paint this picture. The Bible states that Satan is very present with us today. We need to be aware that he is in our lives and he can tempt us. In a handful of verses to support this, in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 4, "Whose minds the God of this age has blinded, who do not believe, lest the light of the gospel and the glory of Christ, who's the image of God, should shine on them." In 2 Corinthians 11, starting verse 13, "For such false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also transform themselves into ministers of righteousness, whose end will be according to their works." John 14:30, "I will no longer talk much with you, but the ruler of this world is coming, and he has no power over me." 1 John 5:19, "We know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one." And in Luke chapter 4, this is a parallel passage to the temptation of Jesus in the third temptation. And it says, "The devil, taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of heaven and the world. And the devil said to him, 'All authority is given to you in their glory, for this has been delivered to me, and I give it to whoever I wish. Therefore, if you worship me, all will be yours.'" So we see the devil is present in very many places, but he is not all present. And that's important to know, because that's kept for God alone. And I believe you'll see a trend in this lesson. The devil is knowing, but he is not all knowing. Again, we have the second temptation of Jesus in Matthew 4, 5, and 7. That's when Satan tempts Jesus with the pinnacle of the temple. But then we also have in Job 8 and 9, we read, when God says, the Lord says to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him? He is blameless and upright, one who fears God and shuns evil." And so Satan answered and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing?" So here we can see, as I mentioned before, did Satan question who Job was? When the Lord said, "Have you considered my servant Job?" did Satan go, Job, where does he live again? Job, wait, what's his last name? I think I came across that Job. What did Satan say? Does he serve God for nothing? Satan knew exactly who Job was. He knew. Why did he know? Because he's been roaming about on this earth. And he knows each one of us because he's present among us. And the devil, when he was with Jesus, this is a very common thing that's been pointed out. How did Satan tempt Jesus? With Scripture. So the devil is knowing, but he is not all knowing. How does the devil know us? I would argue that the devil knows us by our actions. Another familiar passage in Matthew 25, starting in verse 41. Then he will also say to those on his left hand, "Depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not take me in. Naked, and did not clothe me. Sick, and in prison, and did not visit me." So I would argue that Job knows you by your actions. Satan knows you by your actions. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with names. Forgive me. So, because Satan knows you by your actions, this is how Satan knew Job. It said several times, I tried to point it out, but even starting in verse 1, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. That man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and shunned evil. And it's these attributes of Job that Satan used against him. In verse 8, same thing. "Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on earth, blameless and upright, a man who fears God." And Satan tried to twist that back on God and say, well, does he serve you for nothing? So Satan knows us by our actions. In the same way that he knew Job by his actions, Jesus, he was able to tempt based on his actions. But how well does the devil know you? And what does he know by your actions? And this is where we can be tempted. Does the devil know how easy it is to tempt you? How easy it is to push your buttons? How easy is it for you to get angry? Or for you to lose control of your tongue? I've had times where Satan has tempted me and I have become angry. And I have lost control of my tongue. And I have lashed out. Or how about where you look? Are you using the computer where nobody else is looking? Or how about your phone in private so nobody else knows what you're doing? Does the devil know what you see? Or do you think you're not being tempted? Has the devil resisted you? Do you know the scriptures and you use them daily? Or is this just a stumbling block to others? Like the Pharisees who take pride in their knowledge and their many words, how great will your fall be if you are a stumbling block to others? I've been tempted in all these ways. These are examples from my life where I've lost my anger, where I have gone to a private place where I think nobody is watching me and I'm doing things I should not be doing. And yes, even times where I think I'm being right and I'm being a just man, and I find out by my actions I'm causing somebody else to stumble because of my pride. Satan knows how to tempt you. Satan is knowing, but he is not all knowing. Satan is powerful, but he is not all powerful. In Job, we have two examples of this actually. First in Job 1 and 12, "And the Lord said to Satan, Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay hand on his person." So Satan went out from that place. And again, chapter 2, starting verse 4, "So Satan answered the Lord and said, Skin for skin, yes, all the man has will be given his life, but stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, Behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life." And then also, the devil tempts Jesus, as we have read, with all that he has. In Matthew 4:8-11, again the devil took him up an exceedingly high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these things I will give to you if you fall down and worship me. And Jesus said, away with you, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. So we see here that the devil has power. The devil can use his power against us, but he is not all powerful. We are called to come out of this world and not be part of this world. So how can we overcome the devil? The devil is limited in his presence. In James chapter 4 and verse 7, it says, therefore submit to God, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. This idea of fleeing from the devil is not lost upon us. We understand this. We've heard this verse many times. But this example of fleeing, if you resist the devil, he will flee from you. Not walk, not skip, but flee. Do you know the signs of temptation in your life? Do you know when the devil is present? When you get mad? When you go to that private place? When you're a stumbling block to others? Jesus gave the example, away with you, Satan, or get behind me, Satan. Why can't we do the same when temptation comes to us? I believe this is a very powerful point, that if we tell the devil to flee, whether that be by our voice, which will work, by our mind or by our actions, if we resist the devil, he will flee from us. In this example of Jesus' temptations, there in the third temptation, it's very interesting that when the devil showed him all the kingdoms, this is Matthew 8, 9, and 10, all these things, in verse 10, Jesus said to him, away with you, Satan. And then verse 11, the devil left him. In all three temptations, in the first two, he did not say it. But in the third temptation, Jesus said, away with you, Satan. And Satan left him. I think that's a very strong point. We need to know that we can resist Satan. Sometimes we think in the moment, at that time, in whatever space we're in, we don't have that ability, but we do. All we need, I am so adamant of this point, that if we even need to say in the instance, get behind me, Satan, that will call to mind that you're being tempted. That will call to mind that you're trying to do something different. And will also call to mind that you're trying to be spiritual. All those things will happen in that instant. So when you think you're weak and you don't think you can come, just say, do whatever you need to. Get behind me, Satan. Away with you, Satan. That will call to mind that you're resisting temptation, you're trying to not give in, and that you're trying to think spiritual thoughts. So he is present, but he is not all present. He is knowledgeable, but he is not all knowing. In 1 Corinthians 10:13, another really familiar passage to us, no temptation has overcome you except such as common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with temptation will also make a way of escape that you might be able to bear it. Each temptation can be very strong for us. The devil is using his knowledge and his power to try to win us back to the world. Because as we saw, the devil is in control of this world. And Jesus calls us to be out of this world. Even Peter, the devil asked for in Luke chapter 22 and verse 31. When Jesus was going to be tempted, Jesus said, Simon, Simon, indeed Satan has asked for you that he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith shall not fail, and when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren. So we see here Satan was asking for Peter. This is an example of a limitation of Satan's power. That he was asking permission. He couldn't take it on his own. He had to ask permission to tempt Job. God had to remove that hedge from around him. In this example of temptation, the devil might be knowing, but he is not all-knowing. God has provided a way of escape. Sometimes we have to look for it. Sometimes it might not be easy, but God said it, and I guarantee it will be there. He is knowing, but he is not all-knowing. He is powerful, but he is not all-powerful. In Revelation chapter 19, I'll be starting in verse 16. And this has some graphic words, but this is straight out of Revelation. And he has on his robe and on his thigh the name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Then I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the birds that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather together for the supper of the great God, that you may eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses and those who sit on them, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, both great and small. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their army gathered together to make war against him who sat on his horse and against his army. Stop right there. So this battle is taking place. We can see this battle forming. All these great people, this great might standing behind Satan, ready to take Jesus. And this big battle that so many people want to talk about in this Armageddon or this premillennialism, this battle that's being taken. For any of you who watch great movies or know of great movies, I think of The Lord of the Rings. I like that series. This big battle at Helm's Deep, or you're trying to take, or in the Avengers. My wife and I just watched for, again, another time, Endgame, when all these people come together from all these realms to take Thanos. He was the evil one in that particular one. But whatever battle you want to picture, this great battle of all these people are coming together. And what happens? Verse 20. Then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who worked the signs of his presence, by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worship his image. These two were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. And the rest were killed with the sword that proceeded of the mouth of him who sat on the horse. All the birds were filled with their flesh. Satan is powerful, but he is not all powerful. I'd argue the greatest battle in history that all these people want to tell you about is ended in one verse. Then the beast was captured. No battle scene, no battle cry, no loss of life, no drama. The devil and his forces stood against the one on his horse, and then the beast was captured. The devil might be powerful, but he is not all powerful. We need to know our enemy. The devil is out there seeking whom he may devour. Will that be you? Will that be me? The devil is present, but he's not all present. Apparently, I forgot to change some of the fonts. He is knowing, but he is not all knowing. He is powerful, but he is not all powerful. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And the most important, the devil is defeated, and the battle is already won. I think it's important that we know the characteristics of the devil, that he has power, but also he has limitations, and that God has put the devil in his place. If you need prayers from the congregation this evening, because you need to repent of some sins that you have committed, or you wish to be a part of God's army and to be baptized, we encourage you to come forward as we stand and as we sing.